And, all these strategies and some of this feedback and tips that I'm sharing with you today doesn't necessarily just have to relate to business. It's the same thing when it comes to your health and your well being. We don't realize the level of confrontation that we experience because diving into business and launching and creating programs, especially when they are programs that are going out there into the world to transform somebody's life, and it's coming from, deep within like your heart and your knowledge, and you really want to create this beautiful experience for somebody and want to give amazing value. We don't realize that when we sit down to actually start working on these things, how confronting it is to actually do it. We get distracted, we start to procrastinate, we start to question what we're creating, we start to question our abilities and if what we're doing is enough. We start to get caught up in the comparison trap. And for something that we thought, oh, I'm going to sit down this week and finish this project and it's going to only take a couple of days, it ends up actually taking weeks, if not months, because you are on this repetitive cycle of comparison and doubt and insecurity and perfectionism. And something, again, that we thought was going to take no time at all really takes a lot of time because we don't take into account the level of confrontation that we're going to come up against within ourselves. And so that is something that's really important to recognize when it comes to setting those expectations. I also think financial expectations are really important because, again, you have to recognize your bandwidth. If you are just starting out and you want to hit 100K in business, 500K in business, whatever that number is, I think one, it's very important to hold the space for that and the possibility of that 100%. I'm not saying it's not possible. I want to be super clear because it is all totally possible, but we just have to get clear on, do we have the strategy and the bandwidth and the support in place and the knowledge to get there versus just sitting down and throwing spaghetti at the wall. So this is why it's managing expectations while holding the space for the possibilities of what you want to create, whether that's the time freedom, the financial freedom, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's all of it. And just really recognizing that it's all going to unfold in the way that it is. And we just have to be really honest with ourselves in terms of how we are showing up, where we are showing up, how often we're showing up, and the time that it's taking to do these things and to actually get it out there into the world. From starting a project to finishing a project, what does that actually look like? Because during that timeline, if you're just in deep in creation mode, sometimes it can be challenging and difficult to also be in sales mode, right? And again, this is especially when you're in those beginning stages of your business. You can't do all of the things because more often than not, it's just you solely doing all of the things, unless, of course, you have hired out support, then great. But many people in those beginning phases don't have the ability to do that just yet. So they're taking a lot on their plate. You're also learning a lot in those stages. You're really learning the know-how, and hopefully you've invested in some marketing and support so that you understand how the business strategy really comes together and how the sales strategy really comes together, so that you're not just kind of floundering around and trying to figure it out, but you actually have a very clear system that you're following, because that's going to streamline everything and really help you with your timeline and your bandwidth. So again, if you're in those beginning stages and you're in the creation mode, you have to manage the expectation that you may not have the bandwidth to be over here creating and trying to put this thing together while also trying to hit these massive sales targets that, you're really excited by. But the thing is, when it comes to holding the space and having and the space for possibility around this, it means that there can be a both and. There doesn't have to be an either or. So I think sometimes we get caught up in this trap that I can only work on this one thing over here, so I don't have time for sales. or I only have time for sales that I can't work on this project over here. And so this is where we need to hold the space for both and. You can do both. It doesn't have to be an either or, but this is also about getting really, really clear on your calendar and your schedule of what you're dedicating time to and where you're actually focusing. So that's really important because I think a lot of this comes down to focus. And a lot of us don't know how to do that because we're getting so easily distracted. And then that focus ends up being really, or that lack of focus ends up being really, really exhausting. We get so exhausted because we're sitting here trying to focus on this one thing, but we're procrastinating, we're doubting, we're researching this, we're looking this up, we're comparing, we're, getting caught up in all of these cycles, and it ends up slowing us down and slowing us down. So it ends up feeling like you're pushing this boulder up a hill, and it just feels really, really hard to do it all because you don't have the level of focus, or you haven't really strategized with your time and your bandwidth and your schedule. So I think that that's really important to spend some time around, is recognizing what your schedule looks like and where you can fit these things in, and truly carving out the time so that the really important tasks can get done. So does that mean on Monday mornings, you're going to sit for 2 hours and create some content? Does that mean on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it's strictly just focusing on sales days? Is, Thursday the day where you can spend the day doing a creation for your program? Whatever that might look like. This is just an example, but I know for myself, when I really plan out my days like that versus trying to force it all in on one day, then it's really exhausting, right? Having to spend time coaching clients, recording podcasts, doing content creation, and working on any programs or any ideas or things that I want to launch and create, doing that all in one day is incredibly exhausting. So for me, I have to prioritize days to specific tasks. So I know I have coaching days. I know I have podcast recording days. I know I have other days where I can sit and truly just be creative and create the content and work on program creation ideas that I want to do. So I know for myself that that's what works really, really well for me. And I also like to do what is called like a top 6 list. And basically what this is basically brain dumping all of my ideas onto one piece of paper, just writing it all down, getting it all out of my head, and then going through this crazy long list. And sometimes it's 30 things, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20. And basically going through this list and marking the top 6 things that absolutely are important for that week and need to get done. And so out of, again, those 25 things on the list, I mark out the top 6. And then I just focus on those things. And then I go to the very first task and I complete that and I get that off of my plate before I move on to task number 2 and priority number 2. So that's also something that's really important for me because it helps me to be more clear on where I need to put my time and my energy and my focus. And it really helps me to get this big picture of the big things that need to get done and where I'm dedicating my time. So that's why I really, really love the top 6 list. So maybe that's something that could be really helpful for you and you might want to try on in your business or in your life. And, all these strategies and some of this feedback and tips that I'm sharing with you today doesn't necessarily just have to relate to business. It's the same thing when it comes to your health and your well-being. How many times are we like, okay, Monday, I'm going to work out. I'm, starting this new plan and this new program. I'm going to take all of my supplements. And this is going to be the week where like I work out 7 days a week and we just, and I'm going to bed at 10 p.m. and I'm going to drink 3 liters of water. And we pile on all of these things that Monday comes and we don't realize that maybe actually you woke up with the most brutal headache that you don't even have the capacity to work out today. So now what? Everything just goes out the window. Again, it comes down to managing our expectations and baby steps and one thing at a time and not trying to overload ourselves with so many things because then we get overwhelmed, we get frustrated that we can't do it all. And this can easily lead into the cycle of constantly giving up.